Hi, and welcome back to a new session and a new course. The course is in reading called Reading Skills Small Lessons or How to Improve Your Reading Comprehension. Okay, so we'll talk about a few key ideas that can go a long way in terms of improving your comprehension. And comprehension means essentially that when you read the passage, how much of it do you understand and how clearly do you understand. So, what we'll do is instead of going into general ideas about reading and everything, we'll talk about some or a few definite specific skills that we can work on to improve our comprehension, improve our understanding of the passage. So, without going into further theory, let's start with idea number one, which is also the main idea for this session. And the idea is very, very simple. The idea is that whenever you see a passage or a text, the text will be of, let's say, four paragraphs or maybe around 25 to 30 lines. That passage or that text can be reduced to one or two lines, or that every passage has is based around or revolves around one central idea, which is also called the main idea. Okay, so instead of the passage being this big, the passage is actually this big. Okay, or in other words, out of those 25 to 30 lines of text, we want to find those 2 3 lines which are the golden lines, which are the magic lines, which contain almost all the information about the passage. Okay, or, in other words, any passage can be divided into main idea plus the supporting details, elaboration, explanation, illustration, support, etc. Okay. So, for example, even in this session, I've been talking for the last maybe a minute and a half, but overall there is only one line idea that any text can be divided into main idea and supporting detail. But to explain that idea, I have to repeat that idea. That's what an author also does in the passage. To explain this idea, I will also have to give you a lot of examples and specific details because as of now, you might not have understood this general idea. That is also something the author will do. And for his idea, he will provide a lot of examples or statistics or supporting arguments or other sides of the argument that he's going to support or destroy. So there'll be a lot of elaboration, but overall there'll be one major idea per passage. Okay, he's not going to talk about the weather and cricket and politics and everything in general. He's going to talk about one thing and one thing alone. Okay. Okay. So how do we go about identifying this main idea? Uh, One idea that would be very very useful is, let's call it a sub idea of this chapter, is general and specific, being able to identify general and specific forms of information. Once again, this idea itself as of now is in its general state, general to specific form of information. You might not understand it too well, but I will say, for instance and for example, uh, automobile is general and a car is specific. A car is general, and a Mercedes is a specific car. A creature is general, a lion is specific. Furniture is general, chair is specific. Boy is general, Ram is specific. So I hope you get the idea now. And in fact, notice the idea in play. If you can rewind the video and go back, when I introduced the idea, when I said general to specific, you might not have understood. But then later I give you examples which was specific of the general idea given earlier. I know it's slightly recursive, but I hope that made sense to you. So what will happen is the author will give you a general idea, but to elaborate that idea, to explain that idea, he'll give you a lot of specific examples. Okay, so I'll say, for example, Tendulkar is the greatest batsman of all times, and then I'll go into specific details of his greatness, that he has made the highest number of runs, he has made runs on all kinds of pitches, he has made runs in all kinds of different situations. So these three specific details were elaborating on the general idea that Tendulkar is a very very good batsman. So the passage is obviously never going to be about a specific detail. It's always going to be the general idea. So let's say if you have one general idea and one specific idea in a passage, you cannot choose the specific idea. The passage, the main idea has to be general. Okay. Even otherwise, this idea of being able to identify general and specific will go a long way in improving your comprehension. Because say if you can eliminate all the specifics, you'll be eliminating around, in some cases, almost as good as around 80 to 85% of the text. Okay, these examples that you will go through later will help you understand this more, but around 75 to 80% of the text can be eliminated. Okay, we'll go into examples in a bit when we go into full length passages, and you will see it in play. But learn for right now that in a passage the ideas move from general to specific to general. We want to focus on the general ideas. Okay, let's say in a passage, if I have understood the general idea, I can go through the specifics pretty quickly because I already know the idea, and I know that idea will be reflected again and again in those specifics. Okay, or if I'm struggling with the general idea, I'm finding the general idea difficult, in that case, I can use the help of the specifics to understand. Okay. For example, there might be a philosophy given which I did not understand, but when it was given in an example form, when a specific instance was given, it might be easier for us to understand. Okay, so just to revise and summarize once again, what we are saying is that any passage can be divided into main idea and supporting details. And so far, we have also learned that there is a general to specific flow of information in passages, or specific to general. And we want to identify as quickly as possible the general idea, because the general idea gives us an umbrella, a pattern around the whole situation. Okay, but how to identify the main idea once again? So the idea number two in that regard would be paying special attention to the first third of any passage, article, or chapter. Okay, so or paying attention to the first couple of lines of each paragraph. If you look at this session itself and rewind back, you will see that I introduced the idea pretty early on in the session. Okay, so same thing any author does. He wants to get going with the idea, so he will start with the idea. Very rarely will it happen that the idea will be mentioned at the end. Even if that's the case, he will be going into specifics, and maybe by the second or third specific, you can identify the pattern and get the idea going. But 75 to 80%, or maybe even more than that, 90 to 95% of the time, you will find the main idea, the first instance of the main idea being mentioned in the first couple of paragraphs. Maybe half the time, at least in the first paragraph, but definitely in the first one or two paragraphs. Okay. Okay, so idea number three in trying to identify main idea is that pay attention to any idea that is repeated in different ways. Okay, because the passage is long and there is only one line worth of an idea, the author will obviously repeat his idea a certain number of times in different words, in different ways, with using different arguments to make sure that the idea sticks, to make sure that you understand the idea. For example, in this session itself, and he will use different words, okay, for elaborating. So, for example, in this session itself, I can say main idea. I can also say summary of the passage. I can say what is the author trying to say. I can say what is the primary purpose of the passage. So these are nothing but different words of expressing the same idea. So one should be paying attention to any idea that is repeating, any word that is repeating. And if we have, let's say, if we have a good command over words, we will also be able to spot the same idea being mentioned in different words. Okay, this is an interesting idea, and that also leads us to another side point, which is not the focus right now, but that a strong vocabulary will go a long way in being able to comprehend the passage well. We are right now not focusing on the vocabulary part. We want to focus on key ideas related to reading. But obviously, if you understand words easily, you will understand the passage faster and better. Okay. Yeah, but the idea is the second idea for identifying the main idea is that uh, uh, sorry, the third idea for identifying the main idea is that attention to any idea that is repeated in different ways, or we can also call it high word count. Just the repeating words tells a story. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this example to understand this repeating idea. If you look at this paragraph, take your time to read it through and then join us. The ship landed in a medley of noises. You can look at the dictionary meaning of the word medley to understand more. But basically, we're talking about a group of noises or a bunch of noises, okay? So look at these words: hiss, steady drone, slower rumble, human sound, and grind. Yeah, I hope you understand the meaning of each word, because otherwise the lesson will be completely lost on you. But hiss and steady drone and a slower rumble and a human sound and grind are various kinds of sounds or noises which was given in the medley of noises. So this is an example. Once again, this is a specific of the general idea that I was mentioning earlier, that words are, the idea is repeated in different words, and I should be able to identify that idea being mentioned in different words over and over again. Okay.